So, Martin, put simply, it's been wild. What are you telling your clients in this current climate with all the volatility and uncertainty?
There's plenty happening. I mean, the simple headline is, unless your plans change, the plans don't need to change. That if we've got a retirement plan set and we want to retire in 2 years and we're setting up super in a certain way and we're building assets in a certain way, then it doesn't matter what the market does week to week or month to month. The investments inside of our super are set up for years and decades and even longer. So what happens in one day in the share markets or 1 week in the share market should not change that strategy. But I suppose there's a bit of a theme through there is you need to have a strategy to know what you're doing in that regard.
It's those who might not have had a financial strategy in place. They're the ones that are truly freaking out.
They're a bit lost, yeah.
And I don't think the answer is to do anything right now.
Correct. And I think, in two parts. That's important of having a strategy, but also respect that people may not have a strategy or perhaps the strategy they thought, because that's another part of it is that it's easy to kind of go, well, I'm happy to take that investment option when things look rosy. That's fine. That got me an extra 1% last year. I'll stay in that option or go to that option. But you are taking that risk versus reward trade-off. And we do know that longer term, historically, the more risks you take, the more reward you get. But life's not a straight line.
But it's not only the more risk you take, the more reward you might get, but it's the more chance of a loss.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So the people who perhaps have, on paper, lost 2% or 5% or 10% of their super in the last few months are the ones that likely have made 2%, 5%, 20% over the last couple of years. But that's all that human psychology of, well, yes, I know a couple of years ago my super was at 300,000 and then early this year it got up to 380,000. Now if I log on it says 360,000, I've lost $20,000. Yes, potentially, because as humans we just kind of look at that high watermark and go, well, that's money I had or could have had.
Yeah.
But we haven't spent that money yet. And I suppose that's an important message, which is important to say, reiterating, is that the holdings you have, you still actually have. And so depending on which super fund you've got or how that's set up, but generally if you have investments, this means that you just have an investment in an asset, whether that's property or shares. And so therefore, let's say a bank stock, you might within your super fund have 100 of these particular bank stocks. Now, whether those shares are 5% higher or 5% lower, you've still indirectly got that same 100 shares. It's just that this week or this month they're valued differently. So have you lost that 20,000? Well, no, you've still got that same 100 shares. And again, I'm trying to simplify this as much as possible. So I actually haven't lost any of the shares. I've still got the same 100. It's just that this week the market is saying they're not worth as much as they were before. If your intention wasn't to sell your super when you're at 380,000, your intention should definitely not be to sell it when it's at 360,000 because you've still got the same underlying asset. Will it get back to 380,000? Very likely. How long will that take? We don't know. But therefore, if the plan is, well, I was going to hold this for the next few years anyway, then the strategy shouldn't change.
Now, all the stuff that's happened, even in the last month, the S&P 500 is the US stock market, or the top 500 companies in the US. As at today, the 11th of April, the last month, it is down negative 6%, 6.17. Not ideal. The last 5 years, the S&P 500, off the top of your head, I don't expect you to know this off the top of your head. What do you reckon?
I'm going to say in the range of 40 to 60%.
I'm going to say the answer is 88%.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that just that's including that 6% drop.
Yes.
So someone might say, well, it was 94. I could have got 94 instead of 88. Minus 6% looks really scary, but positive 88 looks
I'll take it.
Very exciting.
The last 3 big hits, and we'll call them crashes. Okay. The dot-com bubble. So in 2000, the S&P 500 and the ASX 200, the S&P fell negative 50%. That took 7 years to recover. The ASX 200 then, 50% recovered within the first week. That's big fall, crash,
Big
then
bounce.
big bounce.
A week later.
Within a week,
yep.
The GFC in the S&P 500, negative 56%, took 4 years to recover. The Australian market, about negative 50, 6 years to recover.
Yep.
The most recent one, and this is where we've got to just keep our mitts off our super and be very level-headed and strategic and get advice. COVID, the S&P 500 fell about 33.9%. That recovered in 5 months. We call that a V-shaped recovery. And the ASX 200, negative 36, which fell a little bit deeper than the States.
Yep.
That took 14 months to recover.
Because all of those events, I worked in financial planning, and importantly, they kind of, the pillar or back is that I was sitting in front of retirees at that point and seeing that pain and trying to help them guide through that. And some of them didn't have strategies, which is the main focus. And that's the thing, a couple of parts is that we don't need all the money in cash, but we don't want it all in shares. We want to find the right balance. We need to have buckets that we can access. But the other part, so again, we need a strategy. We're not jumping in and out of the pool. We're either in or we're out, or we need to be the right balance. The other important part, which those numbers you've said are accurate, we actually put a report together every year and send to our clients that have those tables back for even those crashes and further. And the one that sticks out to me is, say, that COVID one, because I suppose it is still recent, we were living through it. When that actually recovered, you said it took 14 months, but that recovery kind of started about, 30 or 40 days after the drop. That was actually the day that I shut down my office and sent our staff home. That was the day that I think the NBA shut down and certain kind of movie sets started to shut down. That was the day the share market started to go up. In that, and there's an analogy that I remember that sticks with me, which is that the markets don't wait for the seas to recover or the light at the end of the tunnel. The markets start to turn around when it's getting less dark, i.e. it's not we know what's coming up, we know what's worse. And so sitting on the sidelines and going, I'll get back in when everything looks a bit smooth.
You've missed it.
That COVID example was when people in Australia were starting to actually make decisions, business was shutting down. The COVID thing obviously went on in different states for many years, but the share market was already well recovered by the time that actually people started doing things or toilet paper was running out. So, and we don't know what the next few weeks or months or years look like here, but the same thing is that the markets are a forward-looking mechanism, and so they're not going to go, oh, okay, we are in a recession, we're not in a recession, okay, sweet, all right, well, now that's all known, let's start to level off, let people get back in and go back up.
Yeah, everything's already priced into the market.
So it's priced, the market will start to go up when things are actually still scary.
If you want to have a chat about your circumstances, feel free to reach out to us at Financial Edge Group to find out a bit more. Everyone's numbers are different, everyone's components are different, and your circumstances and family structure is different. So it's important to have a chat about this rather than rushing out and do anything. But it's also important to be proactive with this planning. And that's what we're here to help with.